a speech before a rare session of a joint session of Congress next week. Now, all the emphasis is how he and the Republicans have been fighting over when he can do this. He's not going to be able to do it Wednesday night because the Republicans are having a presidential debate, so he'll do it next Thursday night. But Chuck Collins, can you talk about what kind of speech you'd like to see him give? What programs should he lay out? What should happen?
Well, he needs to be very clear. I won't talk so much on the spending cut side, although I think there's clearly we could cut a third of the military budget by closing bases and obsolete weapon systems. We could eliminate farm subsidies that go to agribusiness. There's lots of spending cuts that I would recommend. But when it comes to the revenue question, he needs to basically become a champion of this. He needs to stand up and say, look, there's no way that we can get our fiscal house in order if we don't address the loss of revenue from taxation of millionaires and this corporate tax system. And he should call on Congress to pass the Stop Tax Haven Abuse Act, which Senator Carl Levin has introduced, which Lloyd Doggett's introduced. That would generate $100 billion of revenue a year from closing this offshore system. He himself was a co-sponsor of that act when he was a member of the Senate. President Obama gave a speech where he said, look, in the Cayman Islands, there's a building called Ugland House that has 19,000 corporations in it. He says it's either the biggest building or the biggest tax scam that I've ever seen. So President Obama actually understands how destructive this offshore system is. He needs to stand up and say, as part of this, Congress should pass the Stop Tax Haven Abuse Act, create a level playing field with domestic businesses. He should also call for the rollback of the Bush tax cuts and new top tax rates on millionaires. Right there, there's $2 trillion over 10 years of revenue. He has to be a champion of that. So I'd hope he'd use his speech to push back on the sort of we can't even talk about taxes framework that has been set up around the super committee.
We have to wrap right now, but it's also very significant that this hurricane that has whipped through the East Coast, the discussion now as homes are drowned, as villages and cities are cut off, is will there be offsets, the kind of cuts, and Juan, you may have been following this, Congress is talking about, to help there be some kind of hurricane relief for people. But first, the discussion of who gets cut. And we don't hear this issue of the corporate executives or corporations weighing in here, Chuck.
No, I mean, we're looking at a time of absurd, unequal sacrifice. I just came from Vermont, where they've just been walloped with the worst storm of the century. The fact that ordinary middle-class taxpayers are going to be picking up the slack for tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations at a time, and then see further cuts that are going to undermine the quality of life in our communities. We just need to get engaged as a public. This fall, this week, go to a town hall meeting. At the usuncut.org website, there's a list of all the town meetings this week. If your member of Congress is having a town meeting, this needs to be part of the discussion.
Chuck Collins, I want to thank you for being with us.
We're a wealthy country.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Amy. Thanks,
Senior
Juan.
Scholar at the Institute for Policy Studies, directs IPS's program on Inequality and the Common Good. He's co-author of the report Executive Excess 2011, The Massive CEO Rewards for Tax Dodging. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report, back in 30 seconds.